You're working so hard to progress your cycling fitness, but there's so many metrics, it's so confusing at times. I'm going to talk about two of them today, time and distance. And it might surprise you that one of them is a bully. Hi, Scott here from Kinetic Cycle Coaching, and today's video we're going to talk about the metrics of time and distance and how one of them is potentially bullying you and it's holding you back and you're not getting the rewards that your efforts deserve. And it's all to do with the way that our mind works and what we think is important, what we think we need, and how we present data to others. And if you stick around to the end of the video, I'll give you 3 easy to follow tips that will allow you not only just to measure where your CV fitness is at the moment, but also give you an insight on how you can tweak and take things forward without doing a full-on fitness test. Okay, let's get right into it. So time and distance, they're key metrics that you've used either knowingly or unknowingly. It's not many people don't look at time when they're starting to structure their training. They'll be asked either by an internet program or a coach, how much time have you got? I normally find that when athletes tell me they have 8 hours of training, it tends to be closer to 5 or 6 hours on an average week by week. People often exaggerate, so don't worry about that. But the time is a key metric at the start. But somewhere along the line, time filters. It gets lost in translation because suddenly at review points, people are interested in things like distance, average speed. Why is my average speed not going up? I want to cover X amount of distance this week. And suddenly the time becomes a side metric. But when we look at time, when distance overtakes time as a leader metric, the time is all over the place like a roller coaster. And it's that very thing that I want to dive in and tell you, this is holding you back. This is stopping your progress and potentially actually regressing your training because it's affecting your motivation. So let me start by sharing a couple of simple little things about you, about your emotional side and your human rational side. So at the start of training, when you presented your 6 or your 8 or your 10 hours, this was your human side. Yes, I've got this time, I can train here on a Monday morning, Tuesday there, Wednesday, and so on. You broke your week up, really structured. You were very disciplined at it. However, when you started, you were unaware of the rocks that life was going to throw you. You were unaware of the extra hours at work. You were unaware of sometimes family issues, health issues, and they were pulling you away from the time that you had blocked in. You had no B plan, so what you did is you started to go a little bit harder in the sessions that you did have. You started then to go a little bit longer when you had a little bit more time. And what started to happen is when you had time, you maximised it and you felt good about it because I'm using my time to train. That's only got to be a positive thing. But because the time spent fluctuated and sometimes fluctuates between 3, 4, 5 hours per week, the progress that you're able to make in a physiological sense is not the same as what it feels like mentally. You're pushing yourself really hard, so the vigour and the drive that you've got is actually a weakness because physiologically you're creating far too much overload at various periods for you to absorb. Or even worse, you're having too big a gap between training sessions, and even though you're getting that big long ride in, it's actually too severe for the fitness that you've got at this present state for you to make manageable progress. That sounds a bit complex. Let me share a story with you. So you're going to bake a cake. Now you're not a great baker, but you fancy baking a cake. So you go through 4 phases. The first phase is you're going to choose the cake. Now how are you going to do that? Previous experiences, I like chocolate. Next phase, you go for the ingredients. How is the cake made up? We look at the building blocks inside the cake. So you go through the cupboards and you find that you've got 80% of the ingredients. To get the other 20%, It's just 2 things that I need. Oh, I can't be bothered going out to the shop to get them. I tell you what, I'll make it without those. They don't look that important. Or I could substitute this one in. Okay, do you see what's happening with your training? The third phase is you go through the structure, the procedure to blend the ingredients and prepare the cake ready for the oven. However, you get a bit bored. So you stop weighing things accurately and you start to just throw them in. You use your eye. How difficult can it be? Just throw all that together. You end up with your mix. It looks quite good, smells quite good, and you get ready for the oven. This is where you change your mindset. This is where you will go back to the instructions and you'll look for 2 things, the time and the temperature. And you will stick to that religiously. You've broken every rule up to this point, baking the cake. You've broken every rule in your training up to this point. But when you put the cake in the oven, you stick to that time. Why? Because you trust it. You need to trust someone else's judgment to make sure that cake is baked perfectly. And the temperature that it's baked at allows you the confidence to know it's not underbaked and it's not overbaked. It's just perfect. So I ask you this, why is it when it comes to your training, you don't trust the time? You want to turn up the intensity. You want to turn up the distance because this feeds your ego. This feeds that emotional side that you feel as if, well, I've done a good job. I've worked super hard or I've gone super long. Yes, I feel super tired, but I'll recover and get going again. This changes the whole dynamics of your absorption, of your physiological, of your skeletal development. I often say that most amateur cyclists are insane. They train really hard, but they don't make any progress. As Einstein said, do the same and expect different results is a sign of insanity. Now, if that's you, drop a comment in. I will answer them all back. But think about that. Just by going as hard as you can because you've lost a little bit of time thinking that this will progress your fitness, it's illogical. You need to understand that the lower aerobic work is building capillary density, is building mitochondrial density, the essential components of your physiological system to consume more oxygen, deliver more oxygen, and remove more waste products. This is super important to your system. And if you continue to work at the higher intensity, you cannot put the body in that building phase. So have a look at your time. Have a look at what you've done over the last month, the last 2 months. See if you can break down how much you've done per week. See if there is a pattern and see if you've got those big spikes whereby you've had that time available. So you've gone out and just done those super long distances. Did you absorb it very well? I can't emphasize enough the importance of you're only as good as what you can absorb, what you can recover from. So there's no point putting 10 hours into a training plan if you can't recover from it. And that doesn't mean just taking your protein shake afterwards. But time is such a really important metric. You can organize your week so much better around time. You can organize work and family and social activities, all of these if you use time. Don't be driven by distance as such a main metric. Don't be driven by mile munching, because normally this is associated with people who want kudos, they want feedback. I've covered a great distance. It comes in time. You will cover some wonderful distances. Okay, so let me give you 3 strategies that I promise that you can use today. First one, next time you're going to do a long ride or it's planned in your structure, do 99.9 miles or 99.9 kilometers. Just turn your computer off, even if you're not at home. Scott, I couldn't do that. Try it. And then look and see what your Strava community thinks of that. but you are the one holding the power. You know in time you'll do a long ride. You'll do double that. But just look and see how people comment. But you can look in the mirror and say, I did that because I'm in control. I did that because I'm working on my fitness. I'm not presenting to others to get their approval. You did it for yourself. So that's pretty easy to do. The second one is take your FTP now, today, this second, write it down and work out 70% of it. That 70% is going to be your 10-minute health checkup every week. You do it at the same time, roughly if you can. It can be included as part of a warm-up, and you ride at that number now and all the way through the winter. And what should happen is that heart rate that you record in that ride should come down. As the output stays the same, the internal demand should come down. Why? Because you're developing that capillary network and that mitochondrial density, your ability to use oxygen better, your ability to use more oxygen better and get rid of waste products. Now let's say it doesn't come down over time. This is a key sign that 1, you're potentially fatigued. 2, you may be running a virus. 3, you need to look at your training and look and see, are you overloading too much and not recovering? And the third thing, take your FTP again and then create every couple of weeks a decoupling session whereby you do a 20-minute warm-up and then a 20-minute block at 85 to 88% of your FTP. Make sure you record your heart rate, then take 5 minutes recovery and repeat the 20 minutes at the same steady power. Then you're going to compare the peak heart rates in both. This is the easiest way to do it. Take the peak heart rate from the first and the peak heart rate from the second. If the score is 0 to 5% in terms of increase, your CV system is doing great. In fact, you may need to up your FTP. If the score is 5 to 9%, then this is a hard workout. Look at the number every couple of weeks and make sure she's not getting any higher. Because if it is, then there's something wrong with your recovery and there's potentially something wrong with the lower zone training you're doing. If the score is over 10% or at 10%, it's too hard. Your CV system has not got the ability to deal with that intensity. So this could mean that your FTP is a little bit high or you are clearly fatigued. Okay, so let me summarize. Time is essentially your number one metric at the start when you design your structure. Don't ever forget that. Don't lose it. And review your time every single week. Plan your rides out so that you can try and get close within 1 to 2 hours of that set time. If more time becomes available, use it of course, but make sure you build in appropriate recovery. So it may mean tweaking your training a little bit. Next thing, don't let distance dominate. Don't let the ego start to dominate the nice controlled part of the brain. The part where you sit down and say, this is my plan. Stick to it. Even when someone goes past you when you're on a zone 2 session, don't ever forget that you should be actually absorbing, if you're outside, the beauty of your local landscape and the actual sheer joy of being lucky enough to get out and ride. Hey, and remember, be sure to subscribe or give me the thumbs up for the video. And don't forget, every Monday night at 7 o'clock GMT, I do a live coach chat where I answer questions on fitness, performance, training, and bike fitting. I may just give you a shout out if you get involved. And remember, keep smiling, keep sweating, and keep spinning. Anyone can train hard, but there's only a few of us can train smart. I'll see you in the next video.